All right. Lesson 72. Assyria threatens Judah. Continuing on during the time of King Hezekiah. They've celebrated the Passover. Some of the Israelites have left, come out of Israel, some of God's people from those tribes in Israel. Okay. And now we will see some troubles that Hezekiah faces as a king. He's had a very good and peaceful reign up until this point. So you want to turn to 2 Kings chapter 18 to begin. 2 Kings chapter 18 is where we want to begin. It gives good detail, a little bit more details here about that time. And we actually want to start at verse 7. So 2 Kings chapter 18, beginning at verse 7. This is speaking about Hezekiah. And the Lord was with him, meaning Hezekiah. And he prospered whithersoever he went, and he rebelled against the king of Assyria and served him not. So we have to go back a little bit there. Remember, one thing that Hezekiah did when he became king is he said, first of all, we will not pay our taxes anymore to the king of Assyria, and we will not make alliances with other countries to try to defeat them. So remember that. Verse 8. He smote the Philistines even unto Gaza, and the borders there from the tower of the watchman to the fenced city. And it came to pass in the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Hoshea, the son of Elah, that Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against Samaria, which remember is still in Israel. So this is not Assyria coming against Judah, but they're up in Israel, and besieged it. And at the end of 3 years they took it, even in the 6th year of Hezekiah, that is the 9th year of Hoshea of Israel, Samaria was taken. And the king of Assyria did carry away Israel unto Assyria, and put them in Halah and Habor by the river Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes, because they obeyed not the voice of the Lord their God, but transgressed his covenant, and all that Moses the servant of the Lord commanded, and would not hear them, nor do them. So really we're talking about Israel there yet. Okay? Now you get to King Hezekiah and Assyria. Now in the 14th year of King Hezekiah did Sennacherib, king of Assyria, come up against all the fenced cities of Judah and took them. And Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria to Lachish, saying, I have offended. Return from me. That which thou puttest on me will I bear. And the king of Assyria appointed unto Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. And Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was found in the house of the Lord, and in the treasures of the king's house. At that time did Hezekiah cut off the gold from the doors of the temple of the Lord, and from the pillars which Hezekiah, king of Judah, had overlaid, and gave it to the king of Assyria. So, Assyria was no longer receiving their tax money, their tribute money from King Hezekiah. But Assyria still wanted control of all the land. They attacked the Israelites. They eventually were allowed by the decree of God to overtake the Israelites and take them out of the land of Israel. And then, after that, the Assyrians are not done. When we have something, we usually want more. And that's what Assyria has here. They've captured other lands, now they want more. They want the land of the Philistines. Well, who conquered the Philistines? Well, of course, Judah. Maybe they want to head down towards Egypt, the other great nation, and see if they can overtake Egypt and make it into one world power. And more than likely, they also want to take Judah as well. Well, a new king comes into power. A new king called Sennacherib, the king of Assyria. He comes up to Judah. And he didn't enter into the heart of Judah, bound Jerusalem, but he just goes around the edges, the perimeter of Judah. And he begins to take some of the cities, some of the fenced cities even, the fortresses. So he didn't capture the main cities, but he took some of them. Okay. Then he marched towards Lachish, and he tries to take that. And Hezekiah, the king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria to Lachish, saying, I have offended, return from me, and that which thou puttest on me will I bear. Up until this time, King Hezekiah, as we said, he refused to pay tribute. King Hezekiah, in his weakness here, rather than going to the Lord and say, Lord, help me. What should I do? Help me to defeat my enemies. Hezekiah figures, I know how I'll make the king of Assyria go away. I'll give him what he wants. He's just here for treasures and riches and everything else. So, in his weakness, Hezekiah gives in. He says, I've sinned, King Sennacherib, I did it. What do you want? Well, King Sennacherib makes a huge demand. Bible theologians say that this huge demand that he made back then would equate to maybe $2.5 million worth of treasures today. Sadly, where and what was the most plentiful, the richest building in all of Judah? It was the temple. That's the first place that Hezekiah went. Here's the gold out of the temple. The cups, candlesticks, other things in there. He went to the doors. Those doors that he had just a few years finished putting up, and he peeled the gold off of that wood. They were overlaid in gold. He took all of that gold off, and he gave it to King Sennacherib. Because he felt, if I give him all of these things, he'll leave us alone and he'll go away. But that's not the case. Sennacherib did not go away. Rather, he stuck around. And he's going to create some trouble. Verse 17. And the king of Assyria sent Tartan and Rabsaris and Rabshakeh from Lachish to King Hezekiah with a great host against Jerusalem. And they went up, came to Jerusalem, and when they were come up, they came and stood by the conduit of the upper pool, which is in the highway of the fuller's field. What did we say before? When somebody wants something, and then they get it, they usually want more. So when King Sennacherib got all of these riches, he didn't quit. He didn't stop. He only wanted more. He sent 3 men, plus a large host of, or a large portion of his army, with these 3 men, to begin to advance towards Jerusalem now. Well, of course, messengers would have run ahead to King Hezekiah and told him what was going on. Now, therefore, King Hezekiah knew a siege was coming, and the city would be sieged. It would be surrounded. They wouldn't be able to get in or out. Well, Jerusalem is a city that had been sieged before. So the people knew, we need water. And within the city of Jerusalem was a large pool that collected the waters from other parts of the land, maybe up in the mountains, and drained into this pool inside the city. So that pool would be protected. But then there was a large conduit, a large tunnel. Now, well, not a tunnel yet, but we can imagine like a curb, like a gutter. Okay? A large gutter running through the land, nothing over top of it, that the water would flow down. There was an upper pool, another pool outside of the city that also collected water. So as all of the water would fill into that pool, and then that pool would fill up, it would begin to overflow and run down through that nice gutter, probably all stone and masonry, and it would run down that gutter under the city wall of Jerusalem and into the city. Well, there's a couple problems. They're going to need that water, but they also don't want these men coming from Assyria to be able to get at that water. So what do? They construct a cover for it all. They cover the pool, and they cover that gutter, that conduit, to actually make it into now a tunnel. And it's all covered up. It's all protected. We don't know exactly what they used to build it, cover it. We can imagine bricks and other things. But they cover it all, and they cover that opening in the wall of the city of Jerusalem, so that now, as the water comes down, they still have access to the water of that pool. It will give them more time to withstand the siege. So that by the time that these 3 men of Assyria from the king and their army with them arrive at Jerusalem, the pool and the conduit is all covered. Okay? And that's what we read there. So now the Assyrians have no standing source of water out there for themselves. They're going to have to go get it for themselves. And also, the people in Jerusalem will have plenty of water then for them to be able to have. So, what is the result? Well, we have to look at verse 18 for that. So those 3 men are there. The one man we call, now he's named here, it says though he's given a name, Rabshakeh, but many times in the Bible that is more of a title, like captain or some type of important person. Today we have the Secretary of State. So this Rabshakeh is a speaker. He's an important man, and we'll see how he's important. Verse 18. And when they called to the king, there came out to them Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, which was over the household, and Shebna, the scribe, and Joah, the son of Asaph, the recorder. So those men were from Jerusalem. And Rabshakeh said unto them, Speak ye now to Hezekiah. So tell this message to the king. Thus saith the great king, the king of Assyria, What confidence is this wherein thou trustest? Thou sayest, but they are but in vain words, I have counsel and strength for the war. Now on whom dost thou trust, that thou rebellest against me? Now behold, thou trustest upon the staff of this bruised reed, even upon Egypt, on which if a man lean, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh king of Egypt, and all that trust on him. But if ye say unto me, We trust in the Lord our God, is not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah hath taken away, and hath said to Judah and Jerusalem, Ye shall worship before this altar in Jerusalem? Now therefore, I pray thee, give pledges to my lord, the king of Assyria, and I will deliver these 2,000 horses, if thou be able on thy part to set riders upon them. How then wilt thou turn away the face of one captain of the least of my master's servants, and put thy trust on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? Am I now come up without the Lord against this place to destroy it? The Lord said to me, Go up against this land and destroy it. So, this Rabshakeh, his other two partners with him, and the whole host, they approach the walls of Jerusalem. Obviously, by now the doors are closed. Everything's buttoned up. The people are probably now looking off, and they see the men approaching. And the Rabshakeh calls out, Ho! I have a message for the king. Is the king up there? Well, the king isn't there. King Hezekiah is not up on the walls, but other men are up there, and they say, We will take the message. What is your message? And this Rabshakeh says, Well, here's a message from the king of Assyria. First of all, you are foolish for trusting in Egypt. They are like a reed. Now remember, Egypt is along the Nile River, covered with reeds, so it's a good picture. They are like a reed broken in the wind. In other words, they're weak. We could defeat them anytime, and you're going to trust in them? And don't forget that when you lean on that reed, sometimes that skinny little reed will pierce through your hand. Maybe you think you trust in Israel, and Israel will turn against you. He's throwing out all kinds of different statements here, this Rabshakeh is. Why is he doing it? Because he sees not just those men up there who are going to take the message back to the king, but he sees all of Judah up there, or Jerusalem. And he knows that through his speech, he can throw out all kinds of things that will make the people of Jerusalem afraid. And if he makes them afraid, maybe some of them will turn against King Hezekiah. Maybe one of them in the middle of the night will open the door to let the enemy in so that they can gain an advantage and protection for themselves and their family. Who knows? He's trying to instill fear into the hearts of all the people of Jerusalem with his hateful, his mean words, blasphemy, making fun of God and mocking him. That's what Rabshakeh is trying to do here. He's trying to make fun of them. You're going to trust in this? Tell you what, I'll give you 2,000 horses if you have 2,000 soldiers who are skilled horsemen. But his words are all lies. They aren't anything. He says he talked to God, and God told him to come down here. He knew that was false. So what do the three officers do? Well, verse 26. Then said Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, and Shebna and Joah unto Rabshakeh, Speak, I pray thee, to thy servants in the Syrian language, for we understand it. Talk not with us in the Jews' language, in the ears of the people that are on the wall. Okay? So they basically tell them, well, they know what's happening. They see too that their fellow people of Jerusalem are becoming afraid. So they shout down to Rabshakeh, Rabshakeh, you're Syrian. We understand Syrian, us three leaders here. We understand your native tongue. Please talk in your native tongue. Don't feel like you have to speak in the Hebrew tongue to us. Why? Because obviously other people don't understand the Syrian tongue. So they're hoping that the people won't be so afraid. Rabshakeh, on the other hand, says, No, this is perfectly fine. I'll speak in the Hebrew tongue because I want everybody to hear my message, not just you guys. I want everybody to know what's going on. But Rabshakeh would not do it. He just mocked him. he told them, don't listen to your king Hezekiah, he's a fool. Rather you should surrender. Let's all go to Assyria, a land filled with bread and with corn, with wine and oil and honey. You will love living in the land of Assyria. Come over here with us. Remember, there aren't any gods that you've prayed to that have delivered any nations from us. Great Assyria. We have won every battle that we have partaken in. We have eventually conquered every nation. So if you think your God is more powerful than all those other gods, you're fools. Well, he was wrong there. Their God was more powerful. The king, King Hezekiah, had to utter a decree. He had to utter a decree for all the people up there on the wall. Do not say a word back to Rabshakeh and these other men. Do not say anything. Let them spill forth the filth out of their mouths and then be silent. Similar to what Jesus would eventually do one day too. Don't say anything. And the people did it. But you can imagine, I am sure, there are some who were fearful. What's going to happen to us? Are we really going to be overtaken? Is our king really making the wisest decisions? And I'm sure there were some who wanted to shout back at him, do not take the name of the Lord God in vain. Do not mock my God. Those who were maybe in the city who were ungodly and didn't really care, maybe they wanted to give in. Just give in, Hezekiah, because then we will live. At least we can go be servants living in their rich land rather than be dead if we fight them. So we can imagine what all the different thoughts were that were going through the heads of the people of Jerusalem. Well, what does Hezekiah do? Hezekiah is wise here. He makes a good decision. Chapter 19, verse 1. And it came to pass when King Hezekiah heard it that he rent his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth and went into the house of the Lord. And he sent Eliakim, which is over the household, and Shebna, the scribe, and the elders of the priests, covered with sackcloth, to Isaiah, the prophet, the son of Amoz. And they said unto him, thus said Hezekiah, this day is a day of trouble, and of rebuke, and of blasphemy. For the children are come to the birth, and there is not strength to bring forth. It may be the Lord thy God will hear all the words of Rabshakeh, who the king of Assyria, his master, hath sent to reproach the living God, and will reprove the words which the Lord thy God hath heard. Wherefore lift up thy prayer for the remnant that are left. So the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah. So what do these men do? Well, they rent off their clothes, a sign of sadness and mourning. Obviously, they put those clothes of mourning on. Because what Rabshakeh said was sin. It was wickedness. And the ears of the people had heard his blasphemy, the mockery. And so they must ask God, God, please forgive that man and forgive us for what we have heard. So the people are mourning. They know the seriousness of their trouble here. So Hezekiah, though, he wisely goes to the house of God, and does so that he can find Isaiah the prophet. And Isaiah has a message. The Syrian army will not overtake thee. God will send another army to bother them. Okay? They will leave Jerusalem, and they will go back to Sennacherib, who is now at another place, Libnah. And soon, that's exactly what happened. Rabshakeh and his men had to leave. They had to go back to Libnah to be with King Sennacherib because they had heard rumors that another nation would be attacking them. And so they must get back together. They can't have their army separated. That would not be wise. So Captain Sennacherib had many battles to win, and he tried to get King Hezekiah to surrender without a fight, but it didn't work. It did not work. King Hezekiah even received a scary message. Look at verse 10 of chapter 19 and verse 11. The king of Assyria sent a letter to him, and here's what it said. Thus shall ye speak to Hezekiah, king of Judah, saying, let not thy God in whom thou trustest deceive thee, saying, Jerusalem shall not be delivered into the hand of the king of Assyria. Behold, thou hast heard what the kings of Assyria hath done to all the lands by destroying them utterly, and shalt thou be delivered? Have the gods of the nations delivered them? So he writes another letter, trying to instill fear. You're going to trust in your God? He's not going to do anything, thou fool. He will do nothing for you. You are a fool. Well, he's wrong about that. Yes, the king of Assyria had been able to defeat all the other nations because their trust in their gods was worthless. But Hezekiah's trust in his God is not worthless. It is a good trust. And so King Hezekiah prays to God for God to deliver them, and he does. And that's where I ask you, look up James 5, verse 16. And there, in James 5, verse 16, you read the words, the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. In other words, prayer is effective. When we go to God and we wholeheartedly desire something from our hearts in a right and proper manner, and that thing is good before the Lord, we can believe that the Lord will give us an answer. We can desire even, we can hope that the Lord gives us what we want. Whether He does or whether He doesn't, well, that's not up to us. That's up to the Lord. But we can know that God will hear our prayers. And God here heard the prayers of Hezekiah. And Sennacherib went away because God made him believe that other nations were going to be attacking him. So pray. We can pray fervently for things. When we need things, when we have questions about things, pray. Doesn't mean we get what we necessarily want. But it is true that if what we pray for is good and what we desire is right, and our hearts are wholeheartedly in the right place, and it's truly from our hearts that we are praying, we fervently want something, continually to go to God to ask for it, God will answer our prayers, and in many of the cases, He will give us what it is that we desire, because it's a good godly thing right before Him.